Thanks everyone. Am I on?
You're on.
Okay, I'm on. Thank you, Chris-Lynn. Thank you to the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium. Thank you to everyone for coming today. Happy Shark and Ray Awareness Day. This is, I think an exciting, how am I going here? Second. I think this is an exciting opportunity to have an engagement conversation on sharks and rays around the world. And this day provides obviously this great opportunity in this venue, and having you all there, I think is extraordinary. So thank you all again for coming. My name is Dr. Chris Pepin-Neff. My pronouns are they, them. And for the last 16 years, I've worked on what we're starting to call shark perception research. So it's not exact. We're going to talk a little bit about like shark bite mitigation and things like that. But this sort of shark perceptions research is really dedicated to addressing a core problem that Chris-Lynn just mentioned, right? Which is that sharks have bad PR. They got a bad rep. And whether it's Jaws or whether it's the media or whether it's other academics, this is a contested space. And so let's walk through this in a few different ways, if that's okay with you. I'm going to keep going here and see what we run into. And I'll explain what I'm going to talk about. So there's my book, and I only put it up there not to buy it because it's too expensive. Go to a public library and get it. But just to sort of introduce myself to you all. And so we're going to talk about the research. I'm really looking forward to audience questions, and we'll talk about a bunch of things. Some of the ground rules for when I talk about human-shark interactions is the first is that it's not gratuitous, right? So sharks, like there can be some really bad, like people die. There can be some really serious and tragic effects for people in communities when sharks and people come together. And it's important not to, to pretend that sharks are, that there are not, 5 species that can cause serious conflicts and serious injury. So that's the first thing, is that we're not gratuitous. I also want to be sensitive to anyone who's had an experience, because sometimes communities are affected. Sometimes just watching documentaries can be upsetting. And the other thing I want to note is that this is sort of a blameless architecture that I put together in the research that I do. For 16 years, I've looked at it, and I don't think sharks, which have been around, this sort of species have been around for about 62 million years. We've been sort of recreationally in the ocean as humans for like 150. They don't really know what we are. Like, I think when, I'm a bit intimidated that Chris Lowe is coming next week because he's a total hero of mine. And I've met Chris in Australia a number of times. And, I think he would probably say the same thing, that sharks are explorers. They're apex predator explorers. They don't really know what we are. I don't think we have a great idea of what they are. And that combination is not a perfect one. So there's some tension that needs to be worked through over time around coexisting in shared space, especially when one of us is a land animal going into the wild, and the other is a wild animal experiencing a land animal that isn't from there, going into their territory. So it's not a domesticated environment. And part of what I talk about when I talk about sort of redefining the relationship between humans and sharks is also redefining the relationship between humans and the ocean, right? Recognizing that it is the wild that you need to sort of, in Australia, you would say you treat the beach like the bush, right? Like the woods, like that when you go into, you go into the Yellowstone, you wear, trinkets and little bells and things so the bears know that you're coming. Well, sharks don't have that. We splash, and that, sends the opposite message. It says, oh, there's something there that's interesting, and sort of invites them over. And so we're a land animal that goes into the ocean that then sends a signal to the apex predator that we're there. They don't know what we are. Again, the combination of all of those things is really complex and creates a dynamic that we just need to approach from a, like I say, this blameless place where it's much closer to lightning strikes, right? Human shark interactions are much closer to lightning strikes. If I threw one statistic out to you right from the start, and I don't have it in the slides, but this is going to be a bit of an impromptu conversation. So 39% of all human shark interactions, so what are usually reported as shark attacks, have no injury. 39%. In California, I think it's 32% specifically, but globally it's 39%. And so that means, that's a big chunk. Like if you took 30 to 40% of all shark attacks out of that category and put it into something else, that would fundamentally change the relationship between humans and sharks. That 30% of the time we bump into each other, nothing happens. There's absolutely no injury whatsoever. And we don't talk about that. And so that's kind of why I do the research that I do, to have this redefinition conversation around humans and sharks. So we can walk through that, and I'm really interested in your questions. So we'll go. Okay, so my job, I write books. I'm a teacher. I like a senior lecturer, like an associate professor. I also do, if anyone's interested, and I have one slide on here about it, a little bit around shark bite investigations, which is to say that communities will, will invite me to come in. I'm not like Chrysalo, right? I'm not a marine biologist by trade. I'm a social scientist. So while I know a lot about sharks and I do a lot around sharks, as a social scientist, I'm studying people's behavior more than shark behavior specifically. But you got to sort of know about shark behavior in order to tell people what to watch out for when they're stepping into dangerous places. So what's my point? My point is, so as an example, we're going to walk through a case at Reunion Island where I took a picture, and I just want to get the audience's thoughts on what might not be an ideal environment to swim in, like what attracts sharks, what creates tension points where the two can come together. Okay. I also do, like I said, do shark research, and whether you love it or hate it, I did Shark Week in 2015 on they did a episode called it was like the world's impact of Jaws, and I did that. And I also did a TED Talk that you can download on YouTube if you're interested. And that was sort of a really contentious one I did on how we need to rename shark attacks into sort of a different discourse, right? So shark attacks were not always shark attacks. They were called shark accidents for the first 20 years. So in that, again, changes the narrative of this human-shark relationship. A shark accident is very different from a shark attack. And, but it's a little bit like the old saying, right? If you're a hammer, everything's a nail, right? If you've only got one word to use for every human shark interaction, even if 40% of them have no injury at all, then you're going to call it a shark attack. So I do a little bit about that. Okay, so we're being non-gratuitous, be sensitive, and we're not going to blame anyone. Okay, let's get to the sharks. A few things, and I just sort of wanted to I'm going to throw lots of data at you right away, and then we'll walk through it backwards a little bit. So the first is just to remember, and I don't think we talk about this enough generally, that, and it's in my list of the 5 ways to avoid a shark bite, but stay away from dolphin pods. Like generally stay away from dolphins. If you're on a jet ski or surf ski, or if you're on a, on a paddle board out in Southern California, and dolphins come by, it's important to remember that dolphins and sharks eat the same thing. So they don't exactly cooperate, but there is definitely a dance between the way they work through a coastline when they're coming through, and sort of deference is given to one and then the other and things like that. So, but the essential point is that if you see a dolphin, it is more likely that there is a shark there. I think there used to be a theory, and I remember I was on a dolphin tour in Kaikoura, New Zealand, and they were explaining to me that it was okay and safe to swim with the dolphins because they keep the sharks away. Like that there's, like the presence of dolphins keeps sharks at a further distance. It is the opposite. The opposite is true. The presence of dolphins means it's more likely to see a shark. So do not, and that's probably true for all general activity, bait fish, seeing a little flutters of fish on the surface, things like that. Wherever there's activity, it is more likely, birds diving into the water, bait fish on the top of the water, dolphins in the water, turtles in the water, seals in the water, anything like that. It is more likely that there are sharks there. Like they're quite smart. And if there's something going on, they're going to know about it before you or I do. So, one of the things that I do when we talk about like reconceptualizing the ocean as the wild is to just be aware that, that it's a dangerous environment, in that when you enter into it, there's usually, again, I do the shark bite investigation type stuff, right? There's usually something that precedes an incident that is a bit of a telltale sign, right? There's a bait ball, or there's someone spearfishing. And if you want to see a shark, go spearfishing in Southern California. Or in Northern California. But so it's just that this environment is contested. It's not a docile environment. Okay. We're going to talk about how to tag great white sharks. Chris Lowe can tell you much, much more about it, but I'm just going to give you my experience because it was a bit fun. Something else to remember about sharks: girls are bigger than boys, at least within the white shark community, generally speaking. That's generally always true. Cloudy weather will change shark behavior. So, and we'll see an example when we talk about me helping tag great whites in South Africa, that the sunlight really changes how sharks approach interacting with potential prey. Okay. I'm sure everyone knows this. Hammerheads travel in groups. That was for the little kids, if there's any there. My favorite shark is a short fin mako because they're really fast, and they're hunting bluefin tuna, and they're really, really interesting. My least favorite shark is a bull shark because they're a little too bitey for my taste. They sort of fall in the class of like dusky sharks and whalers and things like that. But because maybe everyone knows this, white sharks, for instance, bite based on body mass index, right? So they want to gain the most amount of energy and lose the least amount of energy doing it, right? So they want to bite something big and lose energy that's small. That's the equation. And so, but bull sharks, because they're a little bit smaller, bite a little more often, right? To try to obtain energy from, whether that's fat or whether it's protein or whatever it is, they try to gain it from a situation, which makes bull sharks among the most bitiest of them all. So they're my least favorite. Swimming in a group is really quite safe. They did a study in Sydney Harbor. Yeah, excuse me. And they had all these tagged bull sharks swimming around, the bull sharks were in the harbor. And there's a group of about 60 bull sharks that come up from Brisbane and come down in the summer and go up in the winter because it's warmer when you go north. Anyway, the point is that there was an ocean swim of about 500 people in the water, and they tracked the movement of bull sharks relative to the movement of people and found that the bull sharks stayed away. They don't know what we are. So when 500 of us get in the water, it creates a noise that keeps them at a distance. So it ends up being a much safer environment. So if you're swim with someone, there is always, you want to be attentive to the fact that, that you're not isolated, so swimming with 500 people, but letting them swim a mile away from you is not a great idea. But generally, large groups are better. Rogue sharks do not exist. So this is it's a really interesting, and if anyone has questions about it, let me know. But this is like the Jaws shark, right? Gets a taste for human blood and comes. And wherever I go, I'm sure you're like, Chris, it's like a movie monster trope. It's not, of course, people don't believe it. Every beach I go to, they believe there's one family of sharks that is predatory toward humans. And we just need to kill those 5 or 6 sharks, and then the problem will go away. I've seen this in Egypt. I've seen it in Reunion. I've seen it in Sydney. I've seen it in South Africa. I've seen it all over the world, that the rogue shark idea, because it makes a little bit more sense, right? As opposed to this very long story that I've told about a wild ecosystem with dynamic variables and things like that. That's really complex and intricate. It's a much simpler story to say, there's one over there, and that's the one we need to kill, and that'll solve the problem. So that lives on in large part wherever I go. Sharks cannot really smell your blood. Okay, let's unpack this for just 10 seconds. So it's a little bit, the example I use in my podcast, thank you, Chris Lynn, for the advertisement, is that if you were to put a green pepper in your kitchen and then leave the house and walk around your house and come back through the front door, but you had put a beef stew on the oven, and you're cooking beef stew, but you would put that green pepper in your kitchen. If you walk in the front door, do you smell the green pepper? At some level, you do, right? Like, and maybe it's a 1,000th of a percent, whatever. Green peppers aren't really that smelly. It's not like it was a baked pepper or anything, but it's just a raw green pepper. But you do perceive it in some way. You smell it, and it's part of a collection of a constellation of smells that you perceive. Sharks are very similar in that when they go into the ocean, there's lots and lots and lots of things that they smell, right? But the number one thing they smell, which gets their attention from a smelling point of view, is like fish oil. So that's the beef stew. And we are the green pepper. So is it true that they smell human blood in the water? At a microscopic level, absolutely. Are they coming in your direction in the face of the beef stew being all over the place? No, not really. And no, not at all. Not at all. Okay. If there were any little kids there, I was going to say that Megalodon is a dinosaur, which is really people love. And the Meg 2 is coming out. People love Megalodon. And the last thing I would say before we get into and I know I've gone through a lot, sorry, is that shark bites are mostly mistaken identity. There is a lot of literature on this dating back to Trickus and McCosker in 1985, and who first came up with the mistaken identity theory. And it has evolved essentially it falls into like 3 categories. Mistaken identity, but it's a little bit more complicated than that because they don't exactly think you look like a seal. It's not exact, but they don't know what you are. So you're a big thing where you don't belong. And maybe you could be something that looks like a seal or a turtle or something like that. But it's not, they don't know exactly what you are. They don't know what a surfboard is. You know what I mean? The sharks don't know what a surf ski is or what a jet ski is. So it is definitely mistaken identity of some variety. And so, yeah, so I would just throw that out there. And then it's defensiveness, right? A big thing where it doesn't belong to an apex predator is a threat. So you end up with defensiveness, curiosity. You often will see white sharks in particular will treat humans or seaweed or jellyfish reasonably the same. They sort of surface and come up and have a little, taste and try to get an idea of the consistency. It's important to remember that the teeth of a shark are measuring for fat density, right? Energy. So the moment the teeth touch something that's bony, and which is us, we're compared to a whale or a seal or anything else, we're all bone. They're letting us go, right? It's really, they used to call it a bite and spit as that's much closer to what is happening in the human shark conflict realm. It's a bite and spit more than anything else. And again, that's a case of mistaken identity. I thought you might be something that was fatty and you're not. So goodbye. Okay. Let's keep moving. Okay. This is the places where conflicts happen. I spent 9 months in South Africa. I'm American and I'm also Australian. So I checked the boxes. Just briefly, we sort of went over a lot of this. So I kind of want to get to, how are we doing on time? Okay, we're okay. So I just want to go over some of the basic facts, right? There are about 77 shark bites a year worldwide. 10% are fatal shark bites. So that's about 7 or 8. And my work tries to sort of contest that these are bloodthirsty, one-dimensional actors. I did a experiment at Sydney Aquarium, and Chrysalin, if you ever want me to come to San Pedro, just let me know. And we did an experiment in the aquarium, and we asked people to walk through they had a shark tunnel at this particular aquarium, and people walked through, and I asked them to whether or not they thought the shark could see them. And this question radically changed how they interpreted the shark behavior. So when the sharks ignored them, which sharks usually do 99.9% of the time, sharks ignore humans. It's a boring headline. You're never going to read it on CNN, right? Shark ignores human. That's not the headline. But that's that's the normal story. That is the story of the human shark relationship, is sharks ignore humans. But we sort of introduced this question to people, and it reduced their level of fear by 17% to engage with the fact that sharks aren't looking at you. They don't care. It really is these sets of very extreme variables that end up having people run into sharks in the first place. Okay. 11% of shark bites happen getting in or out of the water. So it's just important to also remember, if you're scuba diving or if you're snorkeling or if you're spearfishing or something like that, that the initial splash, the attraction at the surface of the water creates a certain degree of attention that you want to minimize. So you just want to be careful and pay attention to what you're stepping into. I'm not going to tell the box jellyfish story. It's on the podcast. It's too long. Most shark bites happen between 11 and 2 p.m. Most shark bites do not happen at dawn or dusk. But let's think here for a minute. If we put on our cap, right, our shark bite investigator cap, if all of you are shark bite investigators, and I said to you, why do many shark bites occur at dawn or dusk? And then we talk about them that way. A few reasons. One, you're the only one in the water at 4 a.m., right? You go out to go surfing, and the best surfing is when there's no one else surfing. So you go out earlier, and you keep going out earlier, and you've got a really great wetsuit. So it's warm. So it allows you to stay in the water when it's cold. Winter, summer, spring, fall, you can go out and spend 2 hours in the water. And so you're out there, but you're alone. So from a shark point of view, again, minding their own business, doing their own thing, but something's splashing or making a noise, or it's a big thing where it doesn't belong. I always say that humans are in the way, not on the menu, right? We are in the way. And so we go and we're sitting on the board and dangling our feet in the morning, and there's no one around. There's no reason not to investigate or to be curious or to feel defensive. And so that's when things happen. But most shark bites happen between 11 and 2 p.m. because most people are in the water between 11 and 2 p.m. It's not a function of shark behavior. It's a function of human behavior. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm going to skip over water temperature. You can ask Chris Lowe, but maybe I'll just tell you. With great whites in particular, they're a little bit sensitive to water temperature. And we're talking about surface temperature, not bottom temperature, right? We're talking about what is it here at the top. It's usually great whites come to the surface between like 18 and 21 degrees Celsius, which is like 68 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. And so if you are aware of the water temperature, that might be something that's an asset to you if you're going in the water. If it's really cold, it might be less likely. If it's really warm, it also might be less likely. Okay, let's keep moving. We talked about dolphins. Okay, good, we did that. Don't turn your back on a shark. I always get asked, what do you do? Like, this is all great, Chris, if you're talking about, what do you do before you step in the water? But what if you're in the water and you see a shark? So sharks, they're apex predators. They're the very best at what they do. So their job generally would be to get around you, right? To not be face on. They know when you're looking at them. So you want to keep eyesight with the front of a shark, which means swimming backwards. If you're scuba diving, it might mean sinking to the bottom and letting the bottom of the ocean be your base, right? So nothing can come from underneath you. And if you are looking at tiger sharks, for instance, if you're doing a bull shark or a tiger shark dive in Fiji or in the Bahamas, they'll often put you like on an embankment, so your back is up against a rock bed. So you would do something like that. Whenever people are like, oh, yeah, punch it in the nose, I'm always, I think you should keep your hands to yourself if you can, because putting your hands near a shark's mouth is a delicate operation, and I'm not sure any of us are trained to do that. I'm not trained to do it, and so I wouldn't be thinking that. Back in 1945 in the U.S. Air Force, there was a real, when World War II was breaking out, there was a real hard time recruiting new pilots because they were going to the Pacific. And the theory was that the Pacific is full of tiger sharks and oceanic white tips and other things like that cause problems if the plane goes down. And so the Air Force lied to all of the pilots and gave them two things to hold on to. They said the first is, if a shark comes at you, turn sideways, grab onto its dorsal fin, and ride the shark. And that way you won't get bitten. That was what they told. That was the official line of the U.S. Air Force to pilots. And the second was that they gave them what was called a shark chaser. It was like an ink shark deterrent, but it made the pilots feel better to have the shark chaser in the airplane with them, and it got them up in the air and helped them with recruitment. So there was this whole period of time where and there are a couple periods of time where sharks have presented themselves as a national security issue to the United States of America. The other was in New Jersey in the early 1900s, when there was that bad spate of fatal shark bites in New Jersey up the coast. And Woodrow Wilson brought it to the War Cabinet meeting during World War I, and had a conversation about deploying the Coast Guard down to New Jersey to stop shark attacks in New Jersey. But it made it to War Cabinet during World War I, and then again in the shark chaser in World War II. So it's very interesting stuff. So this PR conversation that I'm always having about, like, sharks have a bad rap. There is a historical line through policy. And if I can say one more thing about this, when they started introducing shark fisheries to the East Coast of the United States, where do you think the first shark fishery was? Off the coast of New Jersey. John Carlton wrote about this. John Carlton from NOAA, who's a great shark scientist who does sawfish and other things down in Florida. And so there's that. Okay, let's keep moving. Keep your eyes on the shark. Okay, this is what we were talking about before. Can I do a time check, Chrislyn? Where am I and how much time do I have left? And is everyone still there?
Everyone's still here, and I just want to let you know we do have quite a mix of age groups, but everything's great. I would say maybe 10 minutes, and then we'll go to questions.
Great, perfect.
That work.
Okay, so now we are. Oh, Chrislyn, can I grab you for one more second? Can you ask the audience? So now we're going to South Africa, and we're going to tag great white sharks in Cape Town off the coast in False Bay. And the question for the audience is, why do you go at sunup? Like, this is a picture on the boat at sunup. Why would I do that?
Okay, anyone have any feedback? Why would he go at sunup? Yes. Some sharks are nocturnal. That's one feedback. Anybody else?
It's relatively cold, so the sharks are inactive.
It's relatively cold, so the sharks are active.
It might be less ocean wave and calmer that time of day.
Okay, might be calmer.
It might be warmer at the surface, so the sharks are closer at the top.
Good tip.
Anyone else?
Because there's not a lot of light. You're just starting to get light. That's the first chance that a shark has to see a silhouette against the lighted surface.
We have a winner. So that was these are all great answers, and they all make logical and very reasonable sense. So very quickly, it's about the glare. It's a tactical advantage for the thank you, Chrislyn. It's brilliant. It's a tactical advantage for the shark to be able to see up and the seal not to be able to see down. So these seals here at Seal Island, I took this on the boat, and we'll walk through it in a second, but they're spy hopping, right? They're looking up, and when they swim, they can't, the glare on the water makes it more difficult. So there's a real advantage. And you'll see it here in a second. So there's not, okay. Oh, then we're going to tag white sharks. And there's me, and there's Seal Island. And here we are on the boat, and I want to get to the next picture. So we throw out these seal outlines. That's what the big rope is. But there's my clipboard. I'm looking for breaches. I'm looking for sharks that are coming up like air jaws kind of style. And here you can see the glare, right, on the water. There is a clear advantage at 4 o'clock in the morning to be coming up rather than going down. And there was a study out of that was also out of Cape Town, but it was out of Hansby, around the corner. And it was about cloudy days. And so on a given day, on a given sunny day, about 80% of breaches will come from below to up, and about 20% will come along the surface toward a seal. But on cloudy days, it's 50-50. So shark behavior changes when the sun goes down or when the sun changes. So this tactical advantage is really, really important for them to be able to know what's going on. Okay, so let's look here for a second. So you're on a boat. Okay, now you're all with me. Here we go. We board the boat at 4 a.m. That boat. We come out to the site at Seal Island. We see the seals and we see the sharks. And we're trying to put a tag on a shark. So the first thing that you do at 4 a.m. is you look for the breaches. And when there's a breach, which means a shark is taking a seal, you drive the boat over to where the breach has occurred, and you drop anchor, and you throw out a line of a plastic seal, and you want to try and, without interfering with the animal, Mother Nature taking its course with the seal, you want to just be around there in case the shark lingers, and you can stick it with where it is. There it is. There it is. And stick it with like a satellite tag. So then after you do that from maybe 4 to 6. And then at 6 o'clock, when the sun is up, the breaching will stop. And then you anchor around a side of the island with the most seals. And then you're stuck there until about noon. So white sharks in that area, and it changes depending on your location, feed until about noon, from 4 a.m. to noon. So we then throw out the decoy and we're chumming the water with fish heads to sort of draw sharks to the surface. You would never feed a shark from the boat, right? Your chum is it's fish oil, right? And we talked about how attentive sharks are to fish oil. It's really about creating a slick. Let me see if I can get a picture of a slick. You can't. Well, okay. So here in this photo, right? This guy on the right-hand side of the photo, he's got a fish head in his hand. That's a chum bucket that's under him, and he's throwing out. And what he's doing is he's trying to drag it to create a slick of fish oil on the surface of the water to attract the shark to the boat. That's what's going on. Does that make sense to everybody? And then the other gentleman here who's sitting on the thing, throwing out the seal decoy, right? You do this because sharks are sort of, remember, they want to ignore, they ignore most things. So you throw out multiple, you're chumming the water, you're throwing out the fish head, and you've got your seal decoy, because you never know what's going to quite get someone's attention, right? What's going to get the shark's attention. I'm going to say this, and it sounds very counterintuitive, but remember that sharks ignore humans 99.9% of the time. Sharks can be very boring. Like, we would go out on the boat, and you're out there again from 4 a.m. to noon, 6 days a week for 3 months. How often do you think we saw a shark? Like that came to the boat, not swimming peripherally around the boat. Any ideas in the audience?
Maybe one a week.
One a week is exactly, that's it. That's the winner. Once a week. I mean, when we talk about sort of the quantum of variables that are required to bring sharks and humans together, it's very, very complicated. And we would, in a dedicated shark boat with a tuna head and a chum slick and a seal decoy, once a week would be twice a week would be gorgeous, but once a week would be really lucky. And so you do all of that to just get one tag and one shark. And that's assuming you did it successfully and there wasn't a problem. Sharks don't like tags. They're not happy campers when you're trying to tag them, right? They will turn upside down and try to drag it on the bottom of the ocean to get it off on a rock or something. They will, they'll fall off. Like, there might be a faulty tag. So the tag's got to be working. It's got to be, like, all of the things need to go right. I don't think I have this slide. Let me just see real quick. I'm going to see if I have a slide of something and if it's in here. No, it's not. Okay. I went to Nova Scotia to work with Chris Fisher, who runs the O-Search boat. Did people know, or follow people following O-Search on there? They have like an app and things like that. And you can follow sharks and turtles and things all around the world. So anyway, so that's another boat that does shark tagging. They do it a slightly different way, but it's the same general principle. Okay. Flash forward, end slide. Here we go. We're at Reunion Island. This is a canal along Reunion Island. They've had a terrible spate of incidents. I want the audience to do a quick little 2-minute analysis. If you were telling the Reunion community what to be aware of that might attract sharks from this picture, what might it be? Any ideas?
Let's start with the young man in the black and white shirt. Don't bring fish oil with you. That might be good advice. Yes. The cloudy sky.
Yes.
And
trash or garbage.
Trash or garbage, yeah.
We're gonna come back to that, but that's a great one.
Right in the back. Just looks like it's densely populated, a lot of people.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
Anyone else? Yes. It looks very bright.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else doing their analysis? Okay, that's our feedback so far.
Okay, good. So now this canal flows onto the open ocean, right? It's like there's a beach just to the right-hand side. You can sort of see the sand from the beach just here at the right-hand side, and then it opens up into open ocean. And the thing to think about here is, let's put a couple of things together. First, trash, right? The trash has got to go somewhere. A lot of places it ends up going in the ocean. Two, construction waste. Look at the girl who mentioned the densely populated. Those condos have got to have a septic tank, right? They've got to flush the toilet at some point. Where is it going? Probably into the canal, right? All things lead, right? All water goes down, right? Water doesn't go up, it all comes down. So you've got densely populated trash. You've also got some boats on the other side of some fishing boats right here on the other side of the canal that are probably gutting fish. And probably fish guts are going in the water. So we're creating a slick with trash and waste. And then we're swimming in it at the end of this canal is a surfing area. So it creates a very, it creates a very dangerous environment, that because you're attracting bull sharks and then you're surfing on top of it. So I might just end it there, but I'll just say that this was a great audience and I look forward to your questions.
Great, thank you so much.
Did anyone think they were going to get this today? Like they think, oh, I'm going to go to do a crime scene investigation?
I just can't get over the whole advice to grab the dorsal fin and go for a ride. Like, but it sounds fun, but I think it's terrible advice. Okay, let's open for questions. Yes.
So you, for Union Island there, was there anything that you could advise these people about, except why are you being stupid? You couldn't make them do anything about the accumulation of other attractants, or were they just told that if you're going to go surfing here, expect that someone's going to take objection to your trying to run over them with a surfboard?
So do you want, Kristlyn, do you want to get a few and then come back, or do you want me to do one at a time?
Let's just do one at a time.
Okay. So in this case, it had never occurred to them that this was a problem. I went to 4 beaches that had very bad fatal shark bite incidents occur at them. And at each beach, there was something similar. There was either a sewage drain and into the water, or a canal, or some other variable that we've talked about today, right? And no one was telling them this. And so, and I had been flown to tell them this. So I told them this. And nobody wanted to hear it. They were very resistant to, there must be some other thing. There must be an angry shark, I was told, that was in the area and was causing the problem. Or if we just killed them all, then we wouldn't have a problem. It wasn't that we were attracting them endlessly, right? So it doesn't matter how many you kill if you're still dumping waste in the ocean, right? Because you're going to attract more. Sharks are pelagic, right? They travel the ocean. So it doesn't matter. They just thought, we'll just keep killing them until they stop. And I tried to explain to them that killing sharks does not stop shark attacks. It can't, because of the way shark movement and shark behavior generally works. That's not going to help anybody.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, you're getting a little education. Just wanted to inform you that sharks are not dinosaurs. They are prehistoric reptiles.
However, the megalodon himself that our speaker was referring to is actually a dinosaur. He was referring to a specific thing and that you see in some movies, which goes back to us. Let's not use movie monster things to scare people, correct?
So I think you're probably both correct. So I'm always in agreement with everyone in the audience. So I was specifically talking about the megalodon, but I think it's important to note because you know the other person in the audience, you know, we could be talking about Greenland sharks, right, which are 400, which can be up to 400 years old, and those are certainly not dinosaurs.
Yeah.
How does cage diving affect shark behavior for students?
Did you hear that?
I didn't. I'm sorry.
How does cage diving affect shark behavior towards humans?
Okay, this is a complicated one. So
I don't like the metal noise.
So there is a very large study that was done by Barry Bruce at CSIRO in Australia about cage diving in the Neptune Islands in South Australia. And it showed conclusively that it changed the pattern of shark migration and movement over a period of a decade. So the first point is there is an effect, period. That's known. The second is that there was a study out of Cape Town in 2006 that looked at cage diving. What it found wasn't that the cages were a problem. What it found was that the boat motor was a problem, that sharks arrived when the boat got there, that it was the sound of the boat, not the cage itself. And it was possible that there was some connection, and that's really very dangerous, right? Because you want to be able to scuba dive and snorkel and drive your boat out to the middle of the ocean without attracting sharks necessarily. But that study showed that there could be a correlation between boat motor sounds and white shark movements. So those are two. And then the last one I would say is that, you know, there is an ethical question around the way cage diving operations are run. So in New Zealand, for instance, they don't use chum. They just show up where the sharks are and they do it. So chumming is is an important variable, because again, remember when at the very beginning when I said we never feed the shark from the boat, right? Because you don't want them to associate the boat with food. So that's a really, really important ethical point. And the second is that the ropes that are used to hold the cage, the shark can sometimes, it's not that the shark wants to go in the cage, but the shark might come by the boat and get caught in the rope. And you'll often see around cage diving operations, sharks that are injured, and you never want to obviously hurt or abuse a shark. So those are three things that are not particularly pro cage diving.
Right, in the front here.
Which shark species is most prone to biting people?
Which shark species is most prone to biting people?
So that is a very complicated question because it depends on what the people are doing. But if we were to say which shark, if you were to rank sharks and which sharks are reported to bite the most people, you're usually, I mean, it's complicated. Okay, I'm going to digress for 10 seconds. The answer is probably reef sharks off New Smyrna Beach, because the most reported in like spinner sharks and like little things like that, because they have these little bites that will happen to surfers in New Smyrna, because New Smyrna reports, 23 bites a year. So not big bites, but little bites. The most fatal shark bites are, that's the so reef sharks still in little spinner sharks are down in New Smyrna, Florida, near Daytona. If we're talking about fatalities, we're talking about great whites. And if we're talking about probably the most problematic, again, probably bull sharks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gave a statistic that was 77 incidents a year and 7 fatalities, but I've heard of situations where lots and lots of people were attacked by a shark. When the Indianapolis sank at the end of the Second World War, so it seems that it's not a smooth thing. There might be times when there's lots of shark attacks. What I'm interested in, is it changing? Is it increasing or decreasing? Do you see that all the time?
Mm-hmm. So there's two things I would say. The first is that the general trend is increasing because the number of people who go in the ocean, the amount of things that we do, and the amount of time that we spend in the ocean are all increasing. So you can't have more people doing more things for longer without having a consequential impact on the nature of humans and sharks coming together. So that's that. The second is that shark bites are what are a statistical anomaly referred to as a Poisson burst, where it's like flipping a quarter and you get like heads and tails, and then you all of a sudden you get heads and heads and heads and heads and heads and heads and heads, right? There's a statistical probability that a very small one that you will hit heads 8 times in a row. So that's sort of the way it works with the number of variables we talked about that you running into a shark. And the Indianapolis is a different story, and that's obviously a really terrible and tragic one. But generally, statistically, you would expect, like, because you might end up seeing this, right, where there's like 6 shark bites off the coast of California in 2 years, and Maui had a really bad year in, I think, 2018. I think there were 8 shark bites in Maui. And that is sort of emblematic of a Poisson burst, of a statistical probability that you put a billion people in the water a year, that some places are going to have a statistical anomalous year.
Okay, your turn.
Are there any human cultures around the world, whether traditional or not, that have a particularly good attitude towards sharks that we can learn from?
Cape Town is the best. So because they look at it as a coexistence model, right? And they do, I think they just have South Africa in its affinity for wildlife and nature and things like that is really advanced. And I think they do a good job, and usually 99 times out of 100 resist a call to go and kill a shark based on some behavior.
Is there any tourism industry around sharks in the Cape Town area that helps the people out there?
So it's a little bit tricky. There are a number of cage dive operators, some which are better than others, right? Some that whose methods might be more pro shark, and you could certainly do it. And you can also go on a cage diving tour without getting in the cage, right? The sharks are there. So, if the issue is the cage or the ropes or whatever, like you can not get in the cage. But so that's a whole, and that's a very large segment of tourism. I will say that also within ethical engagement, I would like to see more of a return on investment for the local community, in the Black South African community specifically. I don't think they're doing enough. Most of the tourists are white. Most of the people staffing the boats are Black South Africans. And I don't think there's enough going back to the local community. So there's a couple things going on there.
Thank you. Yes.
Island eventually the slip like charm and waste I thought that there also is actually traps the bull sharks in Sydney Harbor. That the waste actually directs, like attracts fish like mullet or like certain types of small fish that the sharks might want to eat. And then the waste attracts the fish, which then attracts the sharks. So is that what happens before like the waste is directly attracting the sharks?
That's a really great example. So there's a so mullet, right? So bull sharks love mullet. And there's a river that is attached to Sydney Harbor. So Sydney Harbor has the largest sewage outfall, which is like a sewage drain in the world. It's 40 kilometers from Blacktown to Manly. And at the end of the sewage drain is like a large crab infestation, and there's but there's a lot of mullet. And so the bull sharks just come in and follow the mullet, and then but remember, it's not only the mullet that are there. They might be originally attracted by the mullet, but then there might be bait fish at the surface. And bull sharks are a little bit more, so let's just say it's a warm day, a warm night followed by a warm morning. That will bring the bait fish to the surface, and the bait fish will be flipping at the surface like you might often see in a bay. And the bull sharks then come to the surface. So they came for the mullet and then got interested in the attraction of the flipping bait fish at the surface of the water on a warm morning in Sydney or wherever you are. And that can present a real scenario, but it's the point that you're making, which is that there's a food chain logic that is taking place here. A, B, C, D, E, bull shark.
Right. Yes.
So when you talk to people about why they shouldn't kill the sharks, I mean, obviously we're a group of people who would believe in not killing sharks if you don't have to. What is the reasons that you give people for not killing sharks? I mean, what do you think are the reasons that help people to understand the benefit of sharks to planet Earth?
Were you able to hear that?
I think I got it. If I didn't, do you mind, like if I don't answer it completely or I space out on something, just let me know.
Okay.
So shark bites are a very unique social phenomenon that affect individuals and communities. And people they fall into a class of highly emotional events. And people want revenge, and people want justice for something terrible that's happened. And I've seen some absolutely, awful cases and that don't make any sense. And it's sort of this point of, I always talk about it as trying to govern ungovernable events. These are fundamentally ungovernable events. The lightning strike is a good example. And so, but communities want to make sense of something that doesn't make any sense. And I completely understand their outrage and their anger and their frustration that these things happen. What we then need to do as social scientists or shark researchers is to understand that they're coming from a place of real hurt and real, they're not anti-shark, they weren't going after sharks the day before the shark bite. And, something terrible has happened. And so we, need to understand that and process that in a meaningful way and try to give them something to hold on to that makes sense of it, why it happened, which is sort of why, like in the reunion example, right? So they flew me in and I did this public forum and everyone was outraged at me, and they did this whole, it was a whole media campaign to try to, essentially intimidate me and get me off what I was talking about because they were upset. And I understand that. And so what we need to do is do a better job of saying, bait fish, mullet, sunshine, trash, and waste, sewage, right? That I don't think I mean, I don't know, like, I think you all are maybe ahead of the curve here, but we don't have this conversation about beach awareness very often and about the contributions that people make to it. And so I think hopefully you'll take away from this, conversation, something that will inform other people and other people and other people, but it's part of a very large conversation that we're trying to have.
Thank you. Yes.
With the sewer outfall, is there any way that the sewage could be treated to make it less attractive to the food chain?
Completely. In different areas, they will move the sewage line, or they'll move it to a treatment plant that's offshore or like away from the shore. So Sydney got rid of a sewage outfall that was in Bondi, that was going off to Bondi Beach right in downtown Sydney, and different areas have done this. Recife in Pernambuco in Brazil has also had a bull shark problem ever since they did a construction plan. They built like a mall and a bunch of a development in Recife. And as soon as they did that, there were, I think, like 15 shark bite incidents over the next 8 years. And so they've been trying to clean the water and clean up the local area. It's slightly tricky though, because remember, there's two things that are going to attract sharks. One is waste, and another is clean water that brings in bait fish and, and other things. So it's not always, if you have the cleaner water, you'll have less sharks and whatever. Like in Hawaii, the local indigenous communities would always celebrate the arrival of sharks because it meant they had clean water. And it was the phrase that was often used in the community was sharks are life, because sharks bring fish. If there's sharks, then the water is clean, then there are more fish. And so they're sort of, at the time, sharks were sort of seen as like gods, that because sharks bring life. And so it's a complicated story between, cleaning the water versus dirty water. It's not always a perfect solution.
You had a question.
First, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Second of all, I was wondering if there's any influence on global warming on the population of sharks. Any studies going on with that?
So the answer is, thank you. The answer is yes. And remember when we were talking about water temperature and surface water temperature, and we talked about, bait fish and mullet, and could be saltwater salmon and like other, the migration of other, or dead whales or whatever, you know what I mean? Like whatever is coming through area. If you change the pattern, particularly the water temperature along coastlines, you're going to redistribute fish. And if you redistribute fish, then you're redistributing predators. And if we're redistributing predators on top of human populations, because what you might end up with is both a redistribution of sharks, and because it's warm out, more people who go to the beach like early, maybe they stay in the ocean for longer, they go in, they do more things, and it's a hot day, so everybody goes in the ocean. So you're talking about a climate change effect that affects people's behavior and shark behavior, and that is not a good combination. So I think there are a number of studies that have looked at it and have said, that climate change can increase, has the potential to increase shark bite incidents.
And just to plug next Friday, I'm sure that'll be covered in depth in terms of the sharks of California with Dr. Lowe. He's done quite a lot of research on that. Yes, in the back.
household item or cleaning supply that if it got washed in a storm drain could harm or attract a shark?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Are there any household items that, you know, may get flushed out to the ocean that might be particularly harmful or particularly attractive chemicals and such to a shark?
So I might defer that to Chris Lowe. And because I can't, I mean, the worst is always to flush like fish guts. That's the worst. And usually doing it on the beach or doing it on a canal or doing it from a boat or doing it, anything like that is always really bad. We in terms of chemicals and things like that, I'm not, Chris is the expert more than I am. And so there's that. So anyway, that's what I would say.
Okay. Yes. Sir.
Where are you at with the China and the shark fin kill?
So what's the current status with shark finning, and he particularly in China?
So there are a few things I would say. The first is that I'm not a shark fin expert, so I'm going to speak on what I know, but not what I don't know. There's a large campaign that's run by like colleagues of mine around educating people around shark fin soup and not doing shark finning in China. It is a problem that has a number of different variables because there's an socioeconomic contribution to it. A lot of people, a lot of communities might rely on that. There's also a medical situation because the level of mercury in some shark fin soups is not healthy. So educating people around that is also tricky. I would say that, you know, in one of the biggest things, do people know what bycatch is? That within any shark fishing arrangement, like a shark fishery, they have bycatch, which is just anything else that isn't your target fish counts as bycatch. And in some places, sharks are the bycatch for tuna or some other fish. So you've got finning problems and you've got bycatch problems, and then you've got mercury and you've got socioeconomic considerations for local, you know, a local community that's trying to survive along the coast. So it's that's not a very good answer, but that's what the best I got.
You know, I have read some research that seems to show that it's a little bit less popular in the younger generation in China. So there's been a couple of pieces that have come out that you can search for that kind of give hope to possibly changing tides in that regard. Yes. Did sharks have a better reputation before the 20th century?
That's a great question. So the answer is yes. But it's a little bit complicated because remember I mentioned that New Jersey case in like 1912? It was the belief that sharks don't bite north of the Caribbean. It mustn't have been a shark. So anytime they thought maybe it was barracuda, they thought maybe it was something else that had sort of swum up and bit someone. So there was a belief for a long, which really worked to the benefit of sharks, to be honest, that any shark bites that happened couldn't have been from a shark. So they weren't. So there was sort of like a geographic effect that happened. But the answer is yes, they did have a better one before social media and Jaws and things like that. There was a study that was done in 1983 that showed that the impact of Jaws changed the regulation around sharks in fisheries, and they were referred to as what's called waste fish, which in waste fish, you can fish at a higher level. You can catch more and kill more at a higher level if they're considered waste fish. And that's what sharks were considered. And that was directly attributed to the movie Jaws.
I'll be right with you. Let's go in the back.
I actually have two good questions. One was about kind of what we said with the second one. Sorry, I was just asking the same question. Are there any, like, when it comes to bycatch, are there any species of sharks that are particularly like susceptible to bycatch, and if there's any types of nets that might be more for bycatch?
Okay, so the question is, are there any specific species particularly prone to bycatch? And is also secondarily, are there any nets or fishing practices that are particularly bad when it comes to bycatch? So
the worst in terms of method, I'll start backwards, are gill nets. So a gill net is like it's like a square, and there's like a million of them. And a gill net is designed to catch fish at the gills and drown them, so they can't move. And so the use of gill nets has been outlawed in a lot of places. And you sometimes will see that where they'll like take it and they'll like communities will use like where there's smaller holes for smaller fish. But gill nets are definitely the worst tactic for bycatch for sharks. And in terms of the species, I'm going to say something slightly controversial, which is that I think it's blue sharks. I think that in the North Atlantic, they're sort of decimating the population around bycatch issues in the North Atlantic. So so blue sharks sort of get caught on whether it's the net or whether it's they're trying to change the way the hooks are designed to make them a little less attractive to sharks. The hook is a main device in a lot of ways. So for instance, great white sharks are often caught on sea hooks, which is a larger hook. And when it catches you, you can't let go. So the way the net is designed and the way the hook is designed is very important. They also did this around drum lines, which is when you have a baited hook in the ocean around a beach to try to keep sharks away from the beach. I'm not sure that's exactly what they do, but the point is that dolphins kept getting caught in the drum lines, and they changed the nature of the hook so that dolphins would be less attracted to so if they bit on the fish that was attached to the hook, it wouldn't catch them.
Did you have another question?
Yeah, just one. You've obviously focused more on the sociological aspects of our relationship with the sharks and how we react, whatever they're going. How do you see a trend? Is the trend that we're actually starting to accept them more again, or are we falling more into the jaws instead of flaws mindset?
Good question. I think we're making lots of progress, but I think we're making lots of progress. I'll leave it there. I think we're making lots of progress. If you look at so here's an example. 71% of people, when asked if they thought shark bites were accidental or intentional, said they thought they were accidents. When people are asked who is to blame for a shark attack, you know what percentage of people say the shark? Anybody in the room? I'll put the number behind my head and I'll pull it out. Any guesses?
All of them, actually.
We're getting a big continuum.
6%.
Wow.
6% only 6% of people believe sharks are responsible for shark attacks. It is not that the tide has turned on that. And I go to communities that have been affected by fatal shark bites, usually by clusters. And I ask them, I did a survey in Cape Town, and I went to the community and I said, how much pride do you have in local shark populations? And I did that. Then I flew back to Sydney. Then there was a shark bite at the beach that I had done the survey at. So I jumped on a plane and flew back to South Africa, did the survey again a second time, and the number hadn't changed. It was the first evidence of a community that did not hold a shark responsible for a shark bite, for a fatal shark bite.
You said they have a pretty good culture there about surrounding their sharks. Okay, all right, we're going to do these last two questions. We'll start with you, sir.
I just wanted to tell Dr. Pepin-Neff that local college around here, Long Beach State, where two of my kids have gone, have recently changed their name to the Sharks. So we are a little bit sympathetic in this region for sharks in that way.
Go Sharks. I like it.
It's Long Beach State College.
Nice.
All right, in the back.
Scuba diving or area where there could be sharks out, the human habitat is sea shark. Would there be a chance that the shark is intimidated or afraid of the human, or is it usually just mostly like 95% of the time that sharks just leave humans before and just leave them alone?
Okay, and still the question, let's say you're scuba diving, and is there a possibility that the shark is actually afraid of the human, not just disinterested?
Yes. Remember, I said there's 3 reasons that shark bites occur. One is defensiveness. So that they think you're the threat. They're afraid of you. You could be, they don't know what you are, and you're swimming through the, through the ocean in your scuba tank. So that's the first. The second is curiosity. And the third is that they think you might be something worth biting. But again, they're not sure. So yeah, usually defensiveness, again, remember, we're looking at this in a really, what they talk about, like anthropocentric kind of way, which is when you look at it like a human through a human eyes. Most shark bites are defensiveness, them being afraid of whatever we've done. If I jump off a dock in Pensacola and land on top of a bull shark and it bites me, and that this has happened, I don't know, maybe 25 times, that is a shark that thinks something's happening to it, right? If I jump off a dock and land on you and you do something that ends up hurting me, that's seeing you as a threat to, and you do the only thing you can do.
Okay. Was there one over here? Did you have a question? Did I miss somebody? Oh, okay, go ahead. Last question.
I'm just curious about what projects you're currently working on.
What projects are you currently working on? I want to know too.
Oh, that's a great question. So I just published an article in the journal Biology, which is a big one. And it looked at New York Times reporting on shark attacks and whether or not there was a trend at the New York Times over the last 10 years in the way they did the reporting. And we found that there was a change, and they were diversifying it and calling it, shark. So in the state of California, does everyone know what we call a shark attack in the state of California?
Encounter is one guess. Anyone else?
Okay.
Incident?
That's correct. So in the state of California, they're classified as shark incidents. And so incident, encounter, shark bite, things like that, instead of shark attack. And so we looked at the diversification of the discourse around human-shark interactions and found this trend. So that's one project. Another one is we're doing we're trying to get shark nets out of which are just gill nets, which are shark nets out of the beaches, because 40% of the sharks that are caught in the shark nets that are on the beaches in Australia are 40% of the sharks are caught on the swimmer side, on the beach side of the net. So they're already swimming around inside the net when they get caught. So the net's not doing anything. It's just killing sharks and turtles and dolphins and hammerheads and everything else. And it's providing a false sense of security to the public, because the public will go and jump in the water and they think there's no sharks there. And I'm like, well, 40% of the time the shark is in the net. So because the nets they're not like an enclosure, like they're not top to bottom and all along the sides, because that's really hard to do in the open ocean because of seaweed and tidal effects. So that's a project I'm working on. The other thing is a project I'm working on. And what else? If anyone has any ideas, let me know. I'm always eager for new ideas, but that's the two that I would say.
Well, let's give Dr. Pepin-Neff a big round of applause.